All right, this one has 6 questions. I'm going to answer them all in this video, and it's going to be somewhat rapid fire. So the first question is, why does marriage come off as a requirement or a goal to reach? I don't know. I think for many, marriage is a good gift God has given us. Again, I'll echo just what I've said in other videos. I think romantic love gets a really high placement in this age and our culture in this country. Marriage is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to desire or long for. Just don't allow it to become an idol in your life. So I think it's somewhat normative. I think God has called us to be fruitful and multiply in Genesis. I think God has given us marriage as a model to set an example for a foretaste of what God has in store for us for all eternity, that there's some great things that come through it. Kids come through it, hopefully kids through it. So there's some awesome things about it. Why is it a goal? I don't know. It doesn't need to be your goal. God could have singleness for you. Second question, when is the appropriate time to get engaged? I would say, hey, you know this person pretty well. Generally, you've been dating for a stretch of time. You know this person. There's not really too many huge surprises left in between you as far as big major things or red flags in your life. And so when you've been dating that person and you've gotten to know them well, with the intent of marriage, and you think this person would make a great partner, great, however you want to call it, a great individual that you feel like your life and the ministry that you have can be enhanced and grown by being married to this person, that would be about the time to consider getting engaged. And so that's going to look different for every person. How I would answer wouldn't be necessarily how the next person would respond. If you're that curious about it, you can ask how I knew it was the right time to get engaged to Melissa. So feel free to submit that question if you want to follow up. How do you know if you're in love? Well, there's a lot of chemicals that are in play in a dating relationship. I don't know if you've seen this. Like if you have a friend that is in love, they may be acting a lot differently. So people they have the term head over heels. I'm head over heels for this person. I've been dating a week. And they also, in their chemical sort of highness from dopamine and other things, they may not think that clearly, and they may not think that rationally, and they may ignore a lot of red flags in a relationship. So how do you know if you're in love? I would say love within a marriage context is more of a choice than a feeling. So if you have all these intense feelings and other things, they're not necessarily bad. God gave those intense chemicals and feelings to happen. You know you're in love when you're willing to commit to somebody for a life. That you're willing to enter into a covenant relationship with them, to choose to love them even when it's hard. As I've gotten in marriage and having kids, the times that Melissa's love is fully exemplified for me and me for her is when in our hard times, when we're sick, when the boys are sick, when things are tough, when the other person really doesn't deserve our love, but we choose to love. And so love is a choice, more so than a feeling. So how do you know if you're in love? As you get older and maybe more advanced in a relationship, you'll maybe come to the same conclusion, hopefully, as I did, that it's more of a choice. You choose to love, and it's a wonderful and beautiful thing. And those feelings and the high happiness and the joy to be around that person is still there, and you still experience that, but you understand it more as a choice. Why aren't people in favor of the single life, especially women? I don't know. I'm not a woman. Single life, being a single, again, there's a ton of opportunities. I've already talked about it at length. I don't want to bore you with that. I think that happens with guys and ladies. I think there is a longing for relationship. There is a longing for that romantic love. It's not a bad thing. Just don't idolize it and don't just pursue it above all else, and be shaking your fist at God angry if he doesn't provide that. Take the season to really grow personally and spiritually. Okay? All right, next question. Why do guys brag about having sex with a woman? Again, I don't fully know. I think maybe in a sense guys might brag about that because they see it as, hey, how impressive I am. It's a show of, man, how great I am and all this. I don't really support that at all. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay. When would be the right time to have kids during your marriage? That's a good question. Each and every couple is different, and each and every marriage is different. Here are some good guidelines. Do not have kids or try to have kids to save your marriage. Or if your marriage is in a really bad spot, don't try to have kids in the hopes that somehow that will fix your relational issues. Again, as we learned in week 1, like marriage puts a magnifying glass up to your life. It only it takes the issues that we had as an individual and it makes it really clear that those are bigger issues than we've been led to believe. And so, hey, when to have kids? When you're relationally thriving and doing well as a married couple. Because if that, first and foremost, relationship with Jesus Christ, each of you, that is thriving and going well. The second most important relationship is you and your spouse. If that relationship is not going well, if there are some big things that need to be worked on, don't start adding kids to the picture. That will only cause more issues. Instead, hey, it might be wise to hold off on that time until you work through some of those really key and important relational issues. Take some time. It's not a biblical mandate. Take some time to work on that relationship, to grow, to solidify, to have a relationship with both of you without kids before you start bringing kids into the picture. Because, hey, guess what? After the kids are going off to college and graduating and leaving the house, you go back to the relationship between you and your spouse. And so if that was never really even in existence because you had kids right away, and again, that's not sinful, but maybe a wisdom statement from me, having that, being able to go back to that relationship and having a good foundation for that relationship, I think would be really helpful. Again, I'm not everybody. Those aren't biblical mandates. I would spend a season or two, and it depends when you get married. Like Melissa and I got married later, and so we had a smaller biological time window to have kids. If you get married at 18 or 20, you have a larger window, and it might be wise to spend a couple of those years just solidifying that relationship and doing that. And being wise to all that. So that's just a few helpful tips. Hopefully that answers all your questions. I know that was a lot, but just wanted to give some quick responses to those. If my responses did not satisfy what you were looking for, you can always submit some more questions. But thanks for all those questions.